Welcome back to the channel, and we are reviewing Honey Boy. A young actor's stormy childhood and early adult years spiral out of control as he struggles to reconcile with his father and deal with his mental health. So, just to add on to that, this story is kind of based with this kind of non-linear narrative, and it's kind of set. So we have young Otis being played by Jonah Jupe, and the older Otis in this film as Lucas Hedges, and the kind of the name is kind of like in this third person narrative, so it's not being referred to as Shia, but you know that the story is about Shia's somewhat coming of age, getting closure for himself. So, Honey Boy, just to add more into this film, I gotta be honest with you, when it was about a year ago, and I think whether it was Deadline.com or Rotten Tomatoes, and they released photos of Shia as, and the drop was that he was going to play his dad, I was like, I really didn't know how to feel about it. I'm not going to lie to you, I thought that was somewhat of a fall from grace. Like, I thought, what is he actually doing? We've got somewhat of a Transformer franchise that's kind of descended into a straight capitulation. I mean, apart from the first Transformers film, and nothing really had been. I mean, he done a David Ayer film with called Fury, and that was quite good. And a few other films, but I really did think it was a fall from grace. And let me just say this: so when I then watched the film, you could definitely see where they were going with this narrative. And just to add on more onto that, the film was directed by Alma Harrell. This is my first time that I was kind of introduced to her work, and obviously this was written by Shia whilst he was in rehab in 2017. And the film is kind of an insight into his life, and all the kind of exuberant things that Shia has done in his life. This is kind of the meaning behind it. The whole thing of him walking to the red carpet with a bag on his head with cut out eyes. Like, initially when we first saw all that, we were like, why would he do something like that? But once you get the kind of know-how of his life and what he's been through in this first person narrative the story gives you, it kind of makes the light bulb shine above your head. And I have to say that, this is kind of a weird summary. So the way that Shia's dad is kind of depicted to me, it kind of reminds me of a more sinister version of The Big Lebowski, and it's an interesting story because of their financial setting that the film depicts, and where they are as a family, it finds new. It's a great story to tell because it's very unconventional in the way that all these characters are flawed. And yes, it is a biopic, and I could see why Shia wanted to make this film, to give this kind of insight into his life. Shia as his dad, he does a great job. You can obviously see that Shia knows him like the back of his hand. And as much as the film kind of depicts that he's like the callous antagonist, I couldn't help myself at certain moments. I couldn't help but laugh at certain moments, because the film kind of depicts like this tough love between a father and son. And and some of the best lessons I've learned from my life has been from a standpoint of of, yeah, tough love, but with a sense of reasoning from, from certain, from my, from my dad and other um, men that I look up to in my life. And but the film also depicts that when he actually pushes the boat out a little bit too much, and it's gone past the point of him actually giving him any knowledge, and that's when he kind of can come across as you know, just kind of being overindulgent and over pretentious, and completely forgetting that at the end of the day he is still a kid. And just because you're in the acting industry doesn't mean if you're a kid you can do things at free fire 100% all the time. And I love that kind of theme within this film. I think that, again, if you see my Ford versus Ferrari review, you know that Jonah Duke was in that film, and he's also in Honey Boy. And again, I cannot stress to you people just how phenomenal this actor is. He is the second coming to Leonardo DiCaprio. He still has a lot to learn, but he's going in the right direction. And some of the scenes that this boy's doing, it's phenomenal. It completely just blows my mind. I think Lucas Hedges, he does a great job with the source material he's given. There's not, again, I keep saying this, because this is a biopic film, I find it very hard to look at these films and go, well, it should have had this contrast here, this conflict here, this, I don't know, this social commentary at this moment. I just think that with the story that's being presented, if they're doing the very best they can, I feel like that's enough for me. And I think where this film really did start to really resonate with me was the last 15 to 20 minutes. It has some of the best cinematography, some of the best directed moments where nobody is actually talking. And it just goes to show that in a script, in a story, you don't need to have a million different, you don't have to have a million different lines, or you don't have to drag out the narrative whatsoever. As long as you're going for the emotion of three-dimensional characters, your subcontext is good, your conflict is good, your continuity is good, and you can make a really good film. So, with all that being said, Honey Boy gets a 9.1 out of 10. Now, initially, I was going to give it a 9. I was. But the more that I think about the ending, and the more that I think about how the film touched me, in a sense that no other film has previously done throughout the year, it's a very special film. It's a very similar film to Peanut Butter Falcon, and I wanted to give it a 9 because Peanut Butter Falcon had a 9 as well. But when I come to think of the ending with Honey Boy, it feels more wholesome for me. But yeah, guys, I hope that you've enjoyed this review, and I have a review for The King coming up soon. But yeah, like, comment, subscribe. See you in the next one.